Welcome back. Up next is what I promised at 1:15. Apex is back here telling the story of Taboo. We hope you enjoy. Please stay tuned. Directly after will be a Q&A with Apex. See you soon.
Welcome to Saturday afternoon. It's our final presentation for Sedona Wolf Week, and we saved this presentation for last because it's probably the most important to us. As you know, Taboo, the matriarch of the Apex family, passed away this year, and she really was the reason that we are here. If we hadn't have rescued Taboo, if she hadn't have come into our lives, Apex would not have existed. We wouldn't have moved out here. We wouldn't have started what we started. We started it because of her and because of everything she taught us. Half the people we know, we wouldn't even know. And we certainly wouldn't be here today. So she is the reason, the foundation of Apex. And we really wanted to celebrate her life, and we wanted to celebrate her life with you. Because it's worth celebrating. And so please enjoy this short video, the story of Taboo, the tale of a true ambassador, because that's what she was. She changed a lot of lives, and we are so honored to have known her. Thank you.
We had a memorial for Boo and Merlin way after they passed, actually. Because of COVID, and we were not able to get everybody together, so we waited. And as the volunteers started to come back, and they weren't greeted at the door by Boo, they didn't get to see Merlin in his enclosure. They passed away while everyone was gone, so it was very difficult for them. It was very difficult for us, of course, but we needed closure. We needed to honor her. Merlin was an old boy. He was 15. He lived a good long life for a wolf dog. Taboo was only 11. She was taken too soon by a horrible cancer that just shocked us.
She was the source of Apex, of the healing of all of the animals and people. I've done a tremendous amount of work with veterans and post-traumatic stress and leadership work. Taboo's lessons run through all of that. They include compassionate and benevolent leadership, leading from the back, a strong but incredibly compassionate way of creating a container or a culture or a tribe. And there's a tremendous amount of things that I have incorporated and embodied from Taboo, and it's being pushed out into the world.
And she just was very motherly and very regal at the same time. And it was just wonderful to watch her raise the pack, basically, you know, and obviously she was the reason that they started Apex. You know, they learned everything from her, so she just was a regal, wonderful being, and I miss her.
Taboo is the reason that we're all here together. You guys are our best friends, and we wouldn't have you if it weren't for you. And not only are you our best friends, but you all have become each other's best friends, and it's been the most beautiful thing to watch. I love how we all love each other so much, and we're all so different, but we all love each other and respect each other so much, and we're all working so hard together for a common goal. And it's all because of her.
Taboo was our very first rescue. She was just a yearling. And when we got her back to the sanctuary, we realized how loving she was for humans and a bit shy, but she was very aggressive towards dogs. And mainly that was because she didn't have a lot of exposure to them. Well, in rescuing her, we loved her immediately and felt responsible for her well-being. And so we set out on this journey to learn as much as we could to find out how can we possibly help this girl find some balance. And so we brought her home. We used every opportunity we could, even getting her spayed. We offered to have her stay with us so that we could keep an eye on her. And she settled right in. So it wasn't long after we adopted her full time. And the whole reason that we've dedicated our lives to this mission, that Apex exists, that we live out in the middle of nowhere with a pack of wolves and wolf dogs, the whole reason that we love this species so much and want to protect them is because we wanted to find Taboo a friend.
Her best friend was the one that really turned her around, Eddie. Our best friends, Vernon and Grace, have a dog. He was a puppy then, he was young, tiny little terrier. And we took her over to their house several times. And she started to learn to play with him. And Paula would sit there with Eddie, like hoping that Taboo wasn't going to bite his head off. But she started chasing him, and then he started chasing her, and then she would roll around, and she was so gentle with him.
But, you know, she would be so gentle. And it was always such an amazing thing for whoever was with us to see, because it just really opened their eyes to who these creatures really are, which is they're loving and they're smart.
To Big Bear with them, and it was her first time off leash playing in the snow, and her face, she just became this happy wolf. I mean, she just looked like a wolf. She was in her element. And then we started taking her to the beach. And I remember one time, we had her on a 30-foot leash at this point. We couldn't let her off leash yet, but we had her on a 30-foot. And one day, she started playing with the kids. She wouldn't let anybody touch her. Back then, even now, I mean, even before she passed away, she wouldn't let a lot of people touch her if she didn't know her. But she literally, on the end of a 30-foot leash, the kids were in the water, and they would run in, and the waves would come, and they would all run out. And Taboo saw them playing, and she ran in and stood between them. And then all of a sudden, when the kids ran, she turned around and ran. She was playing with them just as if she was another kid in the water. I remember being so proud of her. I remember looking at her like she was my child playing with the other kids, and she was starting to make friends, and she was starting to come out of this fear that she was in.
I remember when she was playing with you for the first time. You guys were in the ocean, and she just started jumping in the waves and jumping on you and dancing around, and you were jumping around and getting her excited. It was amazing.
She was just head over heels for Merlin, and he became her true love. And Kona came along, and they were best friends. He was her beta. They had so much fun together.
And then we rescued the puppies, Loki and Thor, and Taboo immediately took them under her wing, raising them as her own. And that's when we saw her blossom into the incredible leader that she became.
She was tolerant but firm. And she went everywhere with us. Even to wine country. They loved her up there.
One day we took Taboo to Big Heart Ranch in Malibu, founded by one of our board members. She met her first farm animals that day, including Daisy the deer. Some people believe that wolves are vicious killers and kill for no reason. But that day, it proved otherwise.
And the kids. She loved kids. She loved babies. She was just so gentle.
And if you've ever come for a hike at Apex, you know that Taboo would make you part of her pack, and she would lead from the back like a good mother would.
You know, people who visited us and been like, yep, I've been nudged up the butt by Taboo, because if they weren't moving fast enough, she'd literally nudge them, like, get going, which would crack us up. And she was just so magical, so magnificent, and such a lady. You know, she was just very elegant but strong. She just had the most beautiful qualities of any being I've ever met. She was my baby girl.
You one of her pack. And if you stopped, she would wait. And if you were too slow, she would nudge you in the butt. And I can't tell you how many people have been affected by that. How many people were so blown away to know that a true leader leads from the back, that keeps an eye on their pack, and leads through love? Yeah, it's changed a lot of lives, especially ours.
Hi, guys. I'm sorry, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, why did I do that? Yeah.
There are no questions because I suspect, much like me, they've been watching this amazing tribute and are overcome. So I know you were going to tell some stories, so I'm going to turn it over to you guys to let this take its natural path.
Sure. Well, we always like to tell the story, and I felt like it was too long for the video, and we didn't really have the footage to go with it because we didn't really walk around with our cameras back then, you know. But we often tell the story of the day we found her, and it's quite an amusing odyssey. And we tell it together now because we know it so well, and we kind of do the speed version of it because it's so epic. So we're going to attempt to do that for you guys today live while we choke back the tears. But oh, sorry. So it was I can't remember what day it was exactly, but I was in bed. I'd thrown my back out. I've been in bed for days, and I was wearing some dirty old sweats and a t-shirt covered in cat hair, and I couldn't move, and I had I have a beard now, but more than that. And we get a phone call from a guy, and he says,
"You're passing it to me?"
No.
Oh, okay. Well, we got a call actually from the director of the sanctuary we were volunteering at, and he said that this guy had called, who was kind of like a supporter, that his mom from across the country had called him because her friend from Northridge called her, that there was a wolf dog, a big black wolf dog that had been thrown into the pound in Northridge, and that we needed to get her out. So we were like, whoa, okay. And so the director called us because we lived in Sherman Oaks, which is a town that's very close. So we called all of the shelters looking for this wolf dog, and no one even had a black dog or shepherd. So we called the director back, who called the guy, who called his mom, who called her friend, and this went on all day. And for some reason, this friend who started the whole thing, can you guys hear our pack? Can you hear that, Bee?
Yes, we can hear that. It's amazing.
It's pretty. Anyway, she would not give any information because we kind of figured out in the end that she didn't want the neighbor who was in trouble with this wolf dog to find out that she had tattled on them. So
we finally find out that this animal is on a street called Community Street, and we look on the map. We're actually going to the chiropractor at this point, and we're talking to the actual guy, and he's saying I cannot give you this woman's information because she wants to be anonymous. And we're like, well, can she tell us the address? She's like, no, she'll only tell you the street because she doesn't want to get in trouble. We're like,
and so when we found out that she wasn't in a shelter, then the story came back that she had been tied to a tree. Yeah. The people had moved weeks ago and left her there.
So we're expecting to find this beautiful wolf dog like tied to a tree in a backyard, starving to death, right? And so we panic and we set off to Community Street, which on the map looked like it was little. And when we got there and expanded it, it's like a 4-mile street. It's a long street. So we start at one end and we're looking for sale signs, and we're calling brokers, and we're like, dude, does anybody moved out and left it? And no one. And then the first person we meet is this Native American gentleman, real handsome guy with long hair, and he's real slender, and he's like 80-something years old. And he starts to tell us about why he's so fit at his age, and how he built his house, and how he was in the war, and how to shake hands where you feel each other's pulse, like a Native American. And he told us all this stuff and told us about what he ate. And then we said, but what about the wolf dog? He goes, oh, I don't know anything about a wolf dog.
So we're like, oh my God. So then we continue down the road, and we're talking to people gardening in their yards and painting their houses. And we finally come across this woman who's kind of like the Mrs. Kravitz of the neighborhood. And we ask her about the wolf dog. And instead of telling us about that, she starts to tell us everything about every neighbor and what they've done and why they're evil.
He might have a wolf.
He has a wolf, yeah. And so she was of no help at all. I mean, she made us laugh, but that was about it.
So then finally we go further, and we're getting towards the end of the street at this point. It's like 3 hours later, and we've been talking to everybody. And then I see this woman. She's got these 2 mini Doberman Pinscher, whatever, those little dogs, and she has earbuds in, and she's on the phone talking. She's very businesslike, and she's kind of jogging with the dogs, and she's like, yeah, having a conversation at the same time, very, very LA. And so I get out of the car. Now, remember, I'm on my way to the chiropractor, so I can't really walk very well, and I'm covered in cat hair, and I just look like hell. And so I shuffle over to her, and I'm like, hey. And I start telling her this crazy story about a wolf dog. So she thinks I'm a crazy homeless person. And she's like, get away. I'm like, no. This is a true story. Listen to me. And she goes, that's a crazy story. She starts to kind of realize that I'm not going to hurt her, and I'm not crazy, but I'm telling the stupidest story ever about a black wolf, about a wolf, not even a black wolf. We don't even know what color the wolf is.
No, we knew she was black.
We did? Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, she goes, well, wait a minute. She goes, how do you know that this animal even exists? And I said, that's a good point. We don't. And she goes, well, I have a friend in the neighborhood, and I'll call her. And then
so she does call her, and we can hear her on the phone going, I know exactly where this house is. I know exactly. And I'm coming right now. And no sooner does she click on the phone than she comes running, flailing her arms down the street going, I'm coming. And so she comes, and then she drags us around the corner to a different street.
Not Community Street.
And shows us the house. And she goes, oh, I know everything about these people. Like they have a lot of kids, and they lost their job. And so we come up to this house expecting it to be empty. But
well, she also said we walk by dogs by.
Oh, yeah.
And we see this beautiful black, what looks like a wolf, jumping over and trying to pop her head over this 6-foot brick wall. And she just keeps trying to look at all the other dogs, and she bounces. And we always called her Buru because she used to bounce really high. And that's why she did it, because she wanted to look over the wall. So it looks like the house is sort of empty, but there's still boxes and stuff in the driveway, and there's a car. And so, I look like, a terrorist or something. So I send Paula bravely up the driveway, and I tell her to go knock on the door because I don't want to get shot, right? So she knocks on the door, And the guy opens the door, and she's like, hi, and she tells him the story, and she said, we had an anonymous call. And he says, who? Anonymous?
I was like,
She's like, anonymous, like anonymous, we don't know who.
Like, and he's like, oh. So it turned out that it was at the beginning of the recession. He had lost his job. They lost the house. He did have a large family. It was kind of like the Brady Bunch. And they had to downsize, and they had been trying to find a place to put Taboo, place to adopt her. And we're not having any luck. And I guess that he had mentioned to this neighbor who told us that they thought they might have to take her to the pound, and that would mean she would be euthanized.
And they had actually moved out, but he was still coming back every day to pack and
to feed her.
And she was on kind of a zip line in the backyard because they were nice people. They treated her really well. She was very friendly with kids and the family, but she was so big and so strong that no one would take her for a walk, which created the dog aggression that we talk about in the video, because she was essentially for a year of her life isolated and with the family, but not any other animals. So she was terrified of other animals. So he said,
you want to take her?
And we're like,
well, don't you want to know who we really are and look us up online and make sure we're legitimate? No.
And at the time, we were rookies. I mean, we've been doing this for a year. We'd only been volunteering for a year. And I was driving a Mustang. And so he brings out this beautiful creature just bouncing around on a leash and going down low and giving his belly. And she's afraid of us, but she wants to kiss us. And she's just bouncing, just a bundle of energy. And she's just beautiful. And he goes, here. And he's like, we need to take her before the kids come because I don't want them to have to go through this. And it's difficult enough as it is. Please just take her. And so we put her in the back of a Mustang. Now, for anyone who's in wolf rescue, and I'm sure some of you are watching, we would never do that again. But at the time, we didn't know any better. And luckily for us, she was a sweet girl. She had a lot of gas, but that was the worst thing that happened.
I was in the backseat with her, so that was...
So we drive her up to the place that we were at before. And at the time, I mean, now they're big and beautiful, but at the time it was this very tiny place. And it was actually Villalobos, where Tia Torres was. It was up on top of a hill there, and she had rescued these guys. And the enclosures were not really meant for wolves. But these guys were going to be put to sleep, so she rescued them. And so, the enclosures were kind of tiny. And when we got her there, I remember she didn't want to go in. She really didn't want to go in. And we felt so bad for her. And then a couple of days later, we tried to hike her with one of the pack members, and she just went ballistic. And we realized then that we needed to understand why she was doing this, because at the time we didn't. And so we went on this quest to discover, and we found people that had been on certain shows on TVs. It was supposed to be wolf experts, and we paid a lot of money to go study with them, and it turned out they really weren't wolf experts. They just said that on Animal Channel and whatever. And so we kept moving on, and then we finally found Nicole Wild, who's now on our advisory board, and she had written some beautiful books about wolf dogs A to Z, and living with wolf dogs. We started to read them. We started to call Nicole, and then we started bringing her home, as it said in the video. And for years, we took her, instead of avoiding dogs, we took her to find more dogs than you could ever imagine. And just to get her used to it. And we would go to this place called Runyon Canyon in LA. Any of you live in LA, you'll probably know it. It's a very popular hiking trail for the Hollywood crowd. And lots of dogs. More dogs than you can ever imagine. So Paula would walk ahead of me and try to explain to the crowd why this guy had this massive wolf on a leash, and she was just trying to attack every single dog. And she would say, we're working with her, she's got fear aggression, we're really trying. And at first they thought we were just jerks. Idiots, and we looked like jerks. But every day we went back, and we just kept taking the abuse until finally people started to realize and wanting to help. And slowly but surely everyone was rooting for Taboo, and we were walking through Runyon Canyon one day, blew on the end of a leash, and I said, one day she's going to be walking through Runyon Canyon off leash. And we both just laughed. And a year and a half later, she's walking through Runyon Canyon off leash. And it seemed like a long time, but it also at that point I said, do you remember when I said to you in this exact spot that Taboo will walk through here off leash? And we laughed. And she just blossomed. And we lived in a small apartment at the time. And, you know, probably not appropriate for a wolf dog, but she was really fitting in, and being in the city helped her to adjust. And she slowly became friends with all the dogs in the apartment building. And we kind of took over the tennis court and made it into a dog run. I'm sure some of the people in LA who have apartment buildings know what that's like. Building management hate it, but no one played tennis anyway. So, and yeah, so we started taking her to dog parks and walking around the outside. Now, she was young. I would never take her. I wouldn't have taken her when she got older, because she became very dominant. And she was definitely, if anyone would challenge her, she definitely would. If they were nice to her, she was fine. But we walked around the outside of the dog park every day, and then we went in. But we walked around the inside of the dog park, like right against the edge. And then she met this guy, this dog called Rex, and he became a friend. And then she met another one, another one, another one. And we worked with her every day, 3-4 times a day. When we went to work, we'd have to call a babysitter that couldn't walk her, because no one could walk her if she tried to go for another dog. But they could,
including me.
They could watch her. Paula has been dragged like a cowboy down the street so many times that I'd be like, there goes my wife. And you know, I'd be doing presentations at the other place, and she would just suddenly, Paula would be being dragged on her back right behind me. I was like, that's my wife. It was hilarious. But over the years, she just started to become this incredible, beautiful leader. And eventually when we moved here, and we moved here because we were kicked out of our 1-bedroom apartment because there was one dog that she didn't like. Little fluff ball on one of those retractable leashes, you know, the 30-foot things. And this woman just moved into the apartment building, and this little dog ran around the corner, and without the lady, I was like, Boo, and Boo went, oh, the big growl, you know, and scared the lady. And like every other neighbor, I said, hey, it's okay, come over and meet her. We're working with her. All the other dogs like her. She's really friendly. Your dog just scared her. And she wouldn't have anything to do with it. And then it happened one more time. And then she got attorneys and tried to kick us out of the building. We won the case because she'd been there for years. Then she did it again, but she called animal control. And they came over and knocked on the door one day, right? Do you want to finish the rest of the story now? They knocked on the door with their catch poles, and they had guns, and they were expecting the big bad wolf. And they said, I literally opened the door and said, are you looking for the big bad wolf? And they were like, actually we are. And I said, come here. And we walked into the bedroom, and there was Taboo lying between two cats. And I remember their faces, because they just went, like they took this breath, and they were like, she's so beautiful. And can I take a picture of her? And I'm like, sure. And we told her what we did and how we worked with kids and all of that. And they were really on our side. But unfortunately, they called us a few weeks later and said, I've tried to figure out every loophole in the book to keep you guys in your apartment, but you cannot have a wolf dog in an apartment. You have to be able to provide proper containment. And essentially, you know, the boards on your windows are not proper containment. And so I said, can you give us a month? We lived there for 13 years. It was rent control, gas and electric included. We were starving actors. He said, no, I can give you 2 weeks. And we found this place, and I think you should quickly tell that story, and then we'll open up some questions. But we found this place because we got kicked out. We thought it was the end of the world. I had lost my job. We lost our apartment. I started having panic attacks and ended up in the hospital. And we were living in the middle of nowhere because we were not going to give Taboo up. And we got here, and It wasn't the end of our world. It was the beginning. She created it, and she literally picked this house, and I think Paula should quickly tell that story, you know? How did Taboo pick this house?
Well, so we, Taboo was very shy. She liked people a lot, but especially of men, which is common with wolf dogs. And she had Steve was the only man that she would allow to touch her and be with and everything. And we pulled up to the house, and there was this guy kind of leaning back against his Harley. And we opened the back door of the truck, and she jumps out, and she goes right up to him. And he doesn't know any better, so he just says, "Hey, girl," puts his hands on her head. You don't put your hands on top of a wolf's head or a dog. And he's scratching her ears, and Steve and I just went, "Whoa, okay." So we took a tour around, we're talking. Taboo had this confidence, and she was just trotting around the property and staying close and investigating, completely comfortable in a way that I don't think we'd ever seen before. Yeah. And we were watching her, and we were just kind of dumbfounded. And, this was definitely, we still had jobs, in town, and it's a bit of a drive, and Steve wasn't convinced that he could make that drive every day. And so I kind of liked the space. And it was 2.5 acres of land, which, at the time we only had Boo and the cats, so it wasn't, like a big deal. But as we were leaving, Steve said, "Listen, let me think about it, and then I'll talk to Paula and I'll call you back, but I think this is a bit far." And I had already kind of gone, "Oh, I really like it." And but I was like, all right. So we're getting in the truck, and Steve opens the back of the truck and says, "Boo, come on, let's go." And she starts to head towards the truck, but then she stops and she turns around, goes back up. The landlord is standing in the doorway. She goes and stands with him, sits down. He puts his hand on her head, and we're just going.
And he looks at me and he said, "Think it's 2-1, buddy." I got out the truck and we signed the lease. She literally picked this place. There's no doubt in my mind that she knew what was happening, even though we thought our lives were falling apart. Our lives were actually just beginning. And so that's the story that wasn't in the video. And I'm hoping you guys have some questions.
Hey guys. I don't have a question just yet, but I do have something I think you're going to find pretty amazing. Rhonda Dern, they are incredible storytellers. You guys are Rick's prodigies.
Rick and I talk about it all the time. He is the master. I want to be as good as him, but yeah, thank you.
Anybody will ever be as good as
that. Is a massive compliment. Thank you.
But you guys are amazing storytellers. So the story I would like you to tell is how you had to have boards up and cats on one side, and whenever you slept on I don't want to give it all away, but you know what I'm talking about. The links that you went through to try and make this work.
Well, and it's a really important story, I think, because, we wouldn't be here if there wasn't a need for us. So many people buy these animals thinking it's going to be exotic and wonderful and wild and romantic, not realizing you just bought a wild animal and are expecting it to act like a domestic one. And you have a lifestyle that will never accommodate them. And that's a lot of the education that we try to do in really letting people know what it's like, because we had to give up our lives completely and happily, but how many people are willing to do that? So in bringing her into the home and teaching her how to be there, first of all, they have separation anxiety. She did. So we had a sofa bed, and then we had the bedroom. And in this apartment, we had the living room. We have a gate that's bolted right now that we still have to this day, closing off the kitchen so we can prepare all their food in there without them all coming in.
It is a chain link gate,
9-gauge chain link gate bolted into the and so we started with that, and we separated the apartment in half so that the cats could be on one side. And luckily, Taboo wasn't a big jumper over.
She could jump
up, but not over. So, oh my God, we've been married for so long.
Yeah.
Anyway, but anyway, so she would live on one side and
I feel
the
like
cats
Harry
on
met
the
Sally a little
other.
bit.
Oh, like that.
And then we had this wonderful experience. I remember when we had Taboo.
Me too.
It was a lovely day.
Great day.
Carry on.
Anyway, so, you know, one of us would have to sleep in the living room and the other would have to sleep in the bedroom because the poor cats didn't want to be alone. And this would go on. So Steve and I literally did not actually sleep a whole entire night in the same bed for a year and a half. We had to put these big carabiners on either side of this window because if she saw a dog go by and we had this big window, she would run, jump on it. And
so we had planks.
We were just sure that she would go
hanging
straight through
window.
it. So yeah, we were boarded up like we were ready for the zombie apocalypse. And then we had cameras to watch her so that if we had to, you know, when we went to work, and then, you know, other volunteers from the sanctuary were the babysitters because they knew her and they would come. But of course, she is so strong and required a very special skill to walk her, which we had to learn. So she couldn't go out. So, you know, it was a lot of work and dedication, and she became our world, really.
Yeah, literally our world. And it's funny, you know, a year and a half sounds like a long time, but the cats, I mean, she wanted to get to those cats so badly. And we imagined, you know, not once did it ever go through our heads that we would get rid of her. Never. She was family. We took her on, and that was it, you know. So it was all about thinking how to live your life with her. And we were talking about getting a house, and we're like, well, maybe we can put like a wrought iron fence through half of the house and the cats can be over there. And then, you know, it'll look pretty. It's wrought iron. And you know, we really were thinking like this. And, you know, so we worked with Nicole. We talked to her. She never actually worked with us, but we read her books. And we started scent marking her with the cat smell. And we started scent marking the cats with her smell. And the cat's bed would become her bed at night. And slowly but surely we would feed them. There was a gate and then the hallway, and we would feed them at the end of the hallway and feed her down here. And for a year and a half, we slowly moved the bowls closer and closer and closer till her energy calmed down when she saw them, until they were eating at each side of the gate. And that was probably about a year and a half. And it was the same time as she was getting accustomed to other dogs and things like that. And we tried putting her on a leash and taking her in there, but we put in this wooden floor, and it was really slippy on her feet, and that created chaos, and the cats would slide, and she would Scooby-Doo everywhere, so it didn't really work. So we decided we just had to open the gate. And for 2 days, you know, we would do it in short bursts. We would follow her around like this, just ready to drag her, but she was interested in them, but she wasn't aggressive towards them. So slowly but surely, we would follow her around, and then we started relaxing a little bit, and then we started leaving the gate open, and then we actually all got to sleep in the same bed. And I remember just lying in bed with Paula going, hi, oh my God, this is amazing. And we weren't worried that the wolf was going to eat the cats anymore. In fact, she snuggled with the cats and they became friends. So it is possible, you know, and it is a lot of work. And you know, when I hear stories like one I heard like last week, like, oh, I put her in my car while I went to the gym and she destroyed my car, so I have to get rid of her. I'm like, what? You know, I mean, just people don't understand. And it is a lot of work, but it was worth every minute of it. Our lives literally completely changed. I mean, Taboo is the founder of Apex. There's no question of that. She's our teacher. She taught us everything we know because we were just trying to figure her out. And along the way, and then I have to tell this one quick story because it's such an honor for us. Wolf Dogs A to Z and Living with Wolf Dogs was our Bible. I mean, that was the main book because none of the other books really covered wolf dogs. And most people told us that she should be locked up in a cell and not put near children and all of that. And we just didn't believe it because we knew her true nature, but her wildness would just take over, you know? So we read these books back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
That was the original book.
And so we'll tell you the story about the next. Do you have the other one?
I do.
So we read that book. We got to know Nicole sort of. She taught us a few things over the phone, and we met her a few times, and we read her books. And she was always open to questions, which was really wonderful. And then one day, this is after Apex, we had a video on Facebook of 5 of our pack off leash, and Paula and I walking with them, and I get this Facebook message from Nicole Wow, our mentor, and she says, how have you got 5 wolf dogs off leash? And I was like, I read your book. Maybe you should read it. And she's like, I don't have a chapter on 5 wolf dogs off leash. And she said, I want to come up and see this, right? So we said, please do. So she came for a hike, and she took some pictures. And then we get a message. I'm stalling while she goes to get it. Then we get a message from Nicole saying, hey, I'm redoing my new book, Wolf Dogs A to Z, and I'd like to put Loki on the cover. So that to us was the gold medal, the badge. That to us meant that we had accomplished something that we never really knew that we could, and it meant the world to us. So Nicole means the world to us too, and we love her very much. But she really saw something that a lot of people don't notice. When we go on a hike and you got 4 wolf dogs off leash, they have no idea how long that takes. That's years and years and years of work, and it was nice to be recognized for that. So that's my little brag.
But if we have any questions,
there's a couple. Yeah, they'd like to know how you introduced Taboo and Merlin. How did the love story start?
Well, so
that is a long story too.
The way we
introduced long love story.
So Merlin was a wild man. He was a handful. He was not the safest animal to be around. Let's put it that way. He was pretty aggressive.
Sensitive.
Well, the aggression came out of being very sensitive, having issues with trust and some fear, aggression. So whenever he would start to feel insecure or afraid, he would attack. And but the interesting thing about Mer is that he didn't ever really intend on hurting you. He would attack you as he would tell off another wolf, but it would do some damage because we don't have the skin and the fur. So there were times when he could just really beat you up. And it was a school of what do they call it?
Hard knocks.
Hard knocks for Steve and for me and a few of the others who ended up becoming really close with him. He taught us a lot about wolves and wolf behavior, and about trust and respect, and about their sensitivities, and how to build that trust in a way where they wouldn't feel like they had to defend themselves or tell us off. So so the way that we introduce, two animals to see if they'll get along is we'll hike them on leash at a distance, like at 10 feet. And so they can't get to each other, but they're aware of each other's presence. And we'll let them explore territory together. That's, not their territory.
Far away from their territory.
Right. So it's neutral ground, and, well, it's not mine, it's not yours, it's somebody else's, so we better band together is kind of the hope, right? So we just watch them and see how they respond, and sometimes they ignore each other, sometimes they get along immediately, and sometimes you can see it's not going to happen, but a lot of time you just take your time with it. It can take a long time. You just have to be very patient. And so Taboo did not from day one give Merlin, she did not want to give him the time of day, did she?
No.
Not at all.
He was like one of those big dumb guys. He just was not a ladies' man. He did not know how to do it. And she was just like, ugh, all the time. And so we worked with Merlin for a long time. He came with us from the other sanctuary, and we had a really tight bond with him, and we were able to work with him. And so when we left, we asked if he could come with us. And the director was very kind in saying, yes, you can give him a better life than I can. So he let Merlin come, and he gave us fencing and everything, which was wonderful. And so Merlin came to live with us, and I'd already been working with him off leash in a large turnout at the other place. So he was immediately pretty much off leash, and he was a pretty good boy. And we've got some funny videos on our YouTube of him, running, and me calling him and thinking he was never coming back, and then he would come back over the hill. And actually, that little clip that you saw in this video is it's Merlin and Boo Part 1, because Part 1 took 1.5 years for them. And then one day, she just went into play stands. And that was the day in that video where she started goofing with him. And you don't see Paula and I, but we're bawling. We are crying and laughing. It was just the best day ever, because they were our first two, and they just fell in love with each other. And it took her 1.5 years to put up with that big dumb guy, but when she did, she loved him, kind of like Paula and me. And she loved him. And so one day we did a really big rookie mistake. When you put a lot of wolf dogs together, an energy is formed, and so they react in ways that they wouldn't normally react if they were just alone together. And Taboo was always off leash around here, and the mistake we made was we put Merlin on a leash, and we went for our morning hike, and Taboo was off leash. Now, Merlin and Kona always hackles up, just stared at each other. We would never put them together. It just was never going to work. So they were doing their man off thing, and like looking at each other as they walked by. They were eyeballing each other, and Merlin's in the zone, and Boo jumps on him to play, and he just lost it. And he turned around, and he knocked her over. And I remember her rolling, and her just looking at him and saying, "What?" And she just got up and ran at him. And they both just went, "Bah!" And we were like, "Ah!" And we got him apart. We were literally like, "Ah!" And we got them apart real fast. And we put them on leashes, and we took them both on the walk, because you never want to end on that negative note. We're like, "Okay, let's just walk this off, guys. Let's just do it. We'll walk it off. Everything will be great." Well, that walk-off lasted another year and a half. We did it every day. We were determined that we're going to get back to being in love again. So there's another video that's Merlin and Boo Part 2, where exactly the same thing happens in Part 1. And I know this because I was looking for Boo footage for this video, and I found them, and I put them side by side. And guess what? Me and Paula are there crying and laughing and going, "Look, exactly the same way as we were the first time." Anyway, after that 1.5 years, we were very, very careful to walk past those kennels with them. It never actually happened again. She could go in his enclosure, and she was with him till literally the day that he died. I mean, she was with him the night before he died, and she was with him after he passed away. And sorry. I think 2 months later to the day that she went with him.
Yeah.
And now they're doing a goofy dance somewhere else, and we miss. Sorry.
I'm offended that she decided that she wanted to be with him more than us.
I was just going to say, please don't apologize. And then Paula saved it with a funny comment. Yeah. No, I mean, Steve and Paula, what you guys, those two events alone, never mind all of the other wonderful things that 2020 has brought us, and the fires and this and that. So, I don't think there's anything I could say or anyone could say that would help alleviate what you're feeling. But I can guarantee you that you have hundreds of people standing behind you right now, just, holding you up.
We feel it.
Yeah.
That's how we got through this.
We've got 7 sitting right here.
Yeah. And I see, yeah. And this might help, because I think this is a fantastic question. It's from our friend Gail Helfer. And Gail, if you don't mind, I'm going to modify it just slightly. She asked, how many students and vets do you suppose Boo influenced? But I would like to know, actually, have you ever estimated how many people you think? And not even accounting the ripple effect. Let's just talk about direct.
So, and we've told so many wonderful stories about her growing up and everything, but the truth is that she was just the most incredible ambassador for her kind. And yes, she wasn't a full wolf. She was a upper mid content wolf dog. But her behavior, the way that she interacted, everything about her commanded a respect. You had to earn her trust. She was shy. And, when she became mature and really embraced her, because she was a bully when she was young. She was a bully. And like we said, she was attacking everybody, telling everybody off. She used to like hanging out with the younger wolf dogs because she could push them around. And, she was a terrible leader, but then so is everybody when they're young. It takes a skill and some time to mature into that, which she did. And we started watching her. And, it was just incredible to see how she affected everyone she met and how we were able to talk about her as, talking about the biologist, discovering that the female leads from the back and discovering that it's a matriarchal society and it's actually the alpha female who is running the show. All of these things Taboo was, and we were able to people were actually able to watch it firsthand, and we could talk about it and teach. And she blew people's minds.
So the number literally is in the thousands.
Yeah.
A lot of those people could not touch her or come near her, but they wanted to. And just the people that came here alone and watched the hike, every hike we would talk about the alpha and how the alpha in the pack is the female, the female and the male, but the female is in charge. And how Boo was in charge of our pack, and how instead of walking up front with all the others, she stayed in the back. And everyone who experienced that, was so moved. They couldn't believe that we said it. And I said, we're going to let her out the gate. She's not going to be on a leash. She's going to be in the back the whole time. And if you're too slow, she's going to nudge you up the butt and she'll wait for you. And every single time, that's what she did. And not just that, but the presentations and talking about her and seeing her, every presentation we went to, all the others would be sitting there looking at the audience. We would always be looking at the back, watching out for her pack.
Her back to us in the audience, looking out behind.
She always was on guard. And she wasn't aggressive. I mean, Paula, one day, some guy came running up to Paula in the street because he wanted to meet Taboo, and Taboo hid behind Paula, and Paula's like, step away from my wolf. We had to protect her. She would have hid if there were thieves come in the house, but she had that instinct to protect, and it was really special.
Yeah, I mean,
thousands. Answer the question without diving. Thousands of people, literally. I couldn't literally count them, but the amount of presentations we've done, the amount of people that have been here personally, it's a lot.
Absolutely. I'm sure it is in the thousands, if not more. So, guys, we're going to start to wrap it up. Believe it or not, it's our last behind the scenes with you for Wolf Week 2020. And it's been amazing. I think it's been really wonderful. And I can see the comments that people really enjoyed seeing what goes on at the sanctuary day in and day out. Before we go, Kirsten's up next, and I know she does sound baths at your location. Do you want to give the audience a quick little tease about that? Because we'll have a moment of Zen and then our closing happy hour with music and fun and announcements and dates for 2021.
So I met Kirsten years ago, and, I think that I was most impressed. I met her at the other sanctuary where we worked. And she does the sound bowls, and she actually healed herself from a life-threatening disease holistically through sound, because none of the Western medicine and practices was working. And she felt like she had, I got nothing to lose. And she astonished her doctor with what she was able to accomplish. And the science behind it is that this vibration literally works in your body on a cellular level and literally pretty much like resets your body and releases all of this tension that can cause illness. And you can feel it. And I'm not the biggest woo-woo person, and to be honest, when it comes to wolves, there are a lot of woo-woo people that want to, woo-woo and wolf at the same time. And that's not really what we're about. We're more about education and more science and saving wolves in the wild. However, this modality, this healing modality, for me, I was really amazed by it. I felt it firsthand. She is incredible. She was a former musician, so she still is, obviously, and she takes you on this journey. And I honestly saw the pack respond in a way that surprised me. They actually really love the sound. And it's not soft, it's not quiet, it's intense and vibrates. And I was worried at first that it would disturb them, and it was the opposite. Yeah. And even Merlin, he would lie down.
Merlin loved it the best.
He loves the sound, the ocean drum, and he would come up and kind of stand and press himself against the fence, and then he'd go and lie down, and he'd go into such deep sleep that I thought he had died. I would go, Merlin, and I was like, oh my God, there he goes again.
So she keeps telling me that it's 45 minutes long, and I sit out there, and like 2 minutes goes by, and then it's over, and I go, what happened? And she goes, it's over, it's 45 minutes. And I'm like, no, it was 2 minutes. And she's like, no, I just go out. So
but
yeah,
doing
it just
out
takes you into
nature,
a very deep place.
There's just something about the modality in nature, surrounded by just, it's just, I can't even describe it. I think it's cool. So I really wanted her to be able to share this at Sedona Wolf Week, especially with what a rough year it's been for everyone. I thought it would be really cool to offer this. You can lie down and just enjoy and go for a ride, and then join us back.
Yeah, the video quality is not the best. It was recorded over Zoom while it was live here. But I think Kirsten's going to do a quick intro at the beginning, and then you just chill out. The sound is still good, and you can just lie down and listen to it.
We do it once a month, and she does it around the moon cycle. So it's just really neat.
Wonderful. I was going to say, if you haven't already signed up for Apex's newsletters, please do so, or Facebook posts, social media, and you can find out when the next sound bath healing is on property with the wolves. And that's it, guys. I'm going to see you in about an hour. We're having champagne here, frankly.
We've got it.
Break out, guys. Okay, we're going to join you in that.
Yeah, I hope so. Some music, some champagne, some highlights, announcements, and see you next year when we announce our 2021 dates. So love you lots, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Love you too. I'll see you soon.
Bye.